Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
My oath, and every oath every member of the military took, is loyalty to the Constitution, not to a person.
Mark Kelly, oath to the Constitution, right. Treason treatment for the Democratic Five as the FBI zeroes in on their motive behind their anti-Trump message. We'll discuss it.
Number 2.
So on the one hand, you've got some improvement in affordability. On the other hand, you've got a jobs picture that's just a little bit murky. The jobs numbers the past few months have been weak.
Affordability, the key to Trump term 2. We look at the number and what it would take to raise consumer confidence in a media environment where anti-GOP rhetoric is blasted from dusk to dawn.
Number 1.
Russia has not made one concession in all of these negotiations. Not one. And why is that? Because he has always believed time is on his side.
Yeah, maybe he's right. I hope he's wrong. Balls in Russia's court as major progress made with Ukraine and the EU in Geneva, Switzerland. Now allies, EU allies are even happy. But is Steve Witkoff the best person to deal with Vladimir Putin? He's going to go over there next week. Why is he waiting until next week? We'll have to see. So we'll discuss that too. And Russia, of course, their presence in the Middle East severely hurt when you saw Syria's President Assad be overthrown. He's now living in Russia. And now you have this new leader who's basically been targeted by Russia and the government as they barrel bombed most of the Syrians. They still have a presence in Syria. Besides that, they are being drummed out of the Middle East once again. Dr. Ahmed joins us now. Dr. Ahmed, welcome back.
Pleasure to be here.
First off, when you talk about what last week was the MBS week. That's when he comes to America, and he was treated, he had a flyover, Oval Office, press conference, formal dinner, Kennedy Center investment conference. How was that perceived by Saudi Arabia?
I think it was a huge honor to the Saudis, and I think the Crown Prince said in the Oval Office, the actual triumph is that 9/11 was attempting to sever that relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia that's existed now for almost 80 years to the day. And it is fully back and strong and in good form. So
what do you think about people who were insulted about that here in America? They thought, Jon Stewart, for example, how dare you be so nice to the Saudi prince after most of the hijackers are from Saudi Arabia? What would you tell them?
So what I'd say to John is I take care of 9/11 first responders every day in my office. It is much more complex. This was not a state-sponsored attack, 9/11. Osama bin Laden was stripped of his Saudi citizenship in the 1990s by Saudi Arabia, who warned the United States that he was a terrorist. And the damage done to Saudi Arabia because of that event and all of the subsequent events has been enormous. So the Saudi people and the Saudi royal family are devastated at the loss of life of 9/11 first responders, but the relationship must continue, which is good for regional stability.
How do you explain, or what the reality as you know it with Khashoggi and his killing?
So that was a disaster. I cannot imagine that was a state-sanctioned dismemberment. Khashoggi has been portrayed as a heroic Washington Post journalist. He was much more likely to be affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. There's evidence that he was looking to augment digital networks to bring about the fall of the Saudi monarchy. The Saudis saw him as an enemy of the state. Was he destined to die in that manner? That is atrocious. The Saudi Crown Prince himself has said that is a stain on the kingdom, and they have paid reparations to the family. But that is not the defining event for the relationship between our countries.
Well, I think also, not that it's ever right to kill him. You don't kill him, period, especially an American, someone employed by the Washington Post. But he grew up and was a confidant of bin Laden. He went to high school with bin Laden. They were in constant touch.
He was also part of and very welcomed by Saudi intelligence services. So he was a complex character, but it may bring us up to date with the risks that we're facing here in the United States with the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliations.
So what are your hopes, or what should the Americans know about the possibility that we get to a phase 2 in the Israel-Gaza situation with Hamas and all the other players?
Well, I think we're seeing a realignment in the international community for zero tolerance towards Muslim Brotherhood groups, including Hamas. The entire region is looking forward to the end of this conflict. We've had tremendous alliances with Egypt and Jordan towards Israel to maintain and contain that conflict. I think now comes the part where what are we going to do with the residual armed Hamas fighters that need to be defanged of their weapons and expelled somewhere? As well as creating the International Stabilization Force. I think those are the two sticking points.
Well, how much sympathy do people have for Hamas? Do they have a lot of support in the Middle East? If we put in Middle East forces there for the freedom, the peace forces, and we get the IDF out of Gaza once and for all, and they put together Indonesia, I know, as volunteers and other troops. Is there a willingness there to crack down on Hamas if they start terrorizing people again?
So I just came back from northern Iraq, Iraqi Kurdistan, where there is no love lost towards Hamas. In fact, I asked them, do you have a Hamas presence or a Muslim Brotherhood presence here? They don't have Hamas actors in northern Kurdistan. They have a Muslim Brotherhood political party, which they said, we like to see it above ground because we don't want them underground. There is animus to what they've done to the region, but there's much stronger pro-Hamas sentiment here in the United States. That's what I'm worried about.
And what about the connection of the Muslim Brotherhood here and how it relates to CARE, which is an acronym, and it's the largest. This group has always been problematic. What are we finding out about them?
So there's a bombshell report released by the NCRI and the Intelligence Advocacy Network. They have discovered not only that CARE is taking in California federal funds, supposedly for Afghan refugees, but funneling it into itself and using it for political lobbying without telling the IRS. They were financing some of the most violent protesters with $1,000 rewards on our campus to do all of that pro-Hamas disruption that we saw in our universities. And now, today, they've revealed that the CARE Political Action Group, which is called CARE Action, is operating without licenses, without registration. It's headquartered in D.C. It doesn't have a business license in D.C. to do that. That means it's 22 chapters that it's interacting with and transmitting finances and raising donations, maybe violating all kinds of state and federal laws. Wow.
So that President Trump, that could be his opening to really crack down on them. He's already moved in that direction, right?
I was thrilled with the executive order that's been announced last week. And he is asking for Americans, just as we've seen with the governor of Texas and Senator Ted Cruz, that they're designating specific chapters as potential foreign terrorist or criminal network groups. This report by NCRI and IAN shows that there's also an affiliation with Turkish-aligned, the state of Turkey-aligned influences. CARE's fundraising activities are purported to be civil liberties, but they're actually political action. They're occurring in properties that are owned by the Turkish Ministry of Religious Affairs. Their financial digital architecture is rooted through Turkey, not the United States. There are many irregularities that are raising red flags. So
they got to be stopped. I mean, we know they've been a problem. There's been a lot of attention since 9/11, and they tend to be very anti-American. And you said they were huge. They were pumped a lot of money into Mandami, and I'm sure there was money into that Somali that ran for mayor too in Minnesota, in Minneapolis.
So these are not my allegations. These are findings in the report. And actually, they say themselves, Linda Sarsour, who is an iconic leader in this organization.
An extremist.
An extremist and an anti-Semite, and I would say as Islamist as they come. She is announcing that the largest donation to our mayor-elect came from California CARE. $3 million. Wow. Not only that, but NCRI has found that the campaign of Mamdani, a lot of the social media algorithms were foreign. They were not intrinsic to New York. So we create this digital fiction that he's a political inevitability, and that's been manipulated from outside, from digital impact, and also potentially outside finances.
My hunch is a lot through TikTok.
Yes, TikTok. This is not to impugn Mayor Mamdani or American Muslims. Many Muslims may have contributed to this, thinking that they're becoming involved in the political landscape of the United States, not knowing how it's being manipulated.
So how do you feel about there's a sense, like, for example, in Dearborn, Michigan, you see that Muslim mayor who says, I don't want to be a melting pot in America. I want to keep my own culture. I don't want to lose my identity in American culture. That's not the attitude, obviously, that have kept America thriving for 250 years.
And that is not the mindset that attracted me to this country almost 34 years ago, but that is signs of a desire for separatism, signs for a desire not really of parallel societies, but closed societies. That comes back to the epic housing scandal that was in Texas, where the spiritual leader of a Muslim group there, who'd been very pro-October 7th, was spearheading a housing complex for 1,000 families, which they initially stated was to build a Muslim community. Texans felt it was Muslim only. So there's an effort to capture Muslims in America and separate them off to create political change.
How do you feel about the Somali, their special status being rescinded?
So I don't know if that's been precipitated by these reports of potentially $86 million of funds going somewhere and some of it in Shabab. I think that it's probably necessary. It's also very disturbing to honest, decent Muslims in this country that participate and contribute, but it seems very intentional exploitation of federal dollars. And yes, I want to give you one example that just happened a couple of nights ago in Italy. The Italian government under Meloni has identified a Muslim Brotherhood Italian-Egyptian national in Turin that was preaching and promoting Islamism and has had him deported back to Egypt and stripped him of Italian citizenship, which is a rarity. So what I believe this report will do, NCRI is going to guide our federal agencies to take closer look. Was this sloppy bookkeeping? I think it looks more like financial misconduct, and it is deliberate. And then hold accountable the individuals who were responsible for this, because that needs to be addressed.
All right, Dr. Qanta, Ahmed, stick around. We've got a few more things to talk about. You listen to the Brian Kilmeade Show. Don't move. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Kilmeade Show. We've got a few more minutes with Dr. Qanta Ahmed, Senior Fellow of Independent Women's Forum, member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Great knowledge of the Middle East, throughout Europe, too, and, of course, what's happening here. Doctor, first off, when we talk about Iraq, we used to talk about it every day, 10, 20 times a day. But we have a situation where there is somewhat of representative government emerging there. We always felt good about the Kurds.
Yes.
We always felt like they understood us and they were loyal allies. But what about the rest of Iraq?
So, yes, I was just with the Iranian Kurdistan region a few weeks ago, and they are staunchly pro-American, pro-Trump, pro-Republican.
You said Iranian or Iraqi?
It's Iraqi Kurdistan.
Okay.
So they're staunchly in favor of President Trump and the United States, and they're really unwavering in their support. There was just a general election in Iraq. The participation was not as high as usual, but the election went off well. The Shia cleric, Muqtada al-Sadr, told his followers to boycott the election. He was somehow disenchanted. I'm not sure exactly why. One of the concerns that both in Iraqi Kurdistan and federal Iraq is the operation of the Popular Mobilization Forces. Those are Iranian-backed militia. They're Iraqi nationals. A number of them are designated as foreign terrorist organizations and criminal networks. They subvert the sovereignty of Iraq. They subvert the democracy in Iraq. There used to be 12 groups. There are now 8 that have been subjugated. 4 remain, and the U.S. Department of Treasury is targeting them with financial sanctions, and that is helping the stability of Iraq.
So that's just it. If you could get Iran in order, how many other things fall into place? Because then the militias, Iraq would have a chance. They don't like the Iranians historically. They have pride in it. They want to be Iraqis.
Well, Iraq is a country rich in human resources and natural resources. It was vibrant when I visited there. People were in restaurants late at night. People were getting married in hotels.
Really?
Did
you feel comfortable walking the streets?
Oh, I was very comfortable. I traveled alone. I was able to go wherever I wanted. I met with my friends, both men and women. They were traveling to see me.
Do people know you were an American?
Oh, yes, they do. They watch us. They watch your show. So they know I'm an American, and they know my views, and they're very supportive and welcoming. In fact, while I was there, I wanted the opportunity to go and visit Syria, and I was able to do that by land.
Really? That is stunning to me.
I had 2 big requests. I wanted to meet General Mazloum Abdi, who is the commander of the Syrian Democratic Forces. I believe he's probably the most important military figure in Syria and is a key to the future of the stability of Syria.
What portions of the country does the Syrian government control?
So the central Syrian government now is headed by Ahmed al-Shara, and he has purportedly around 50,000 troops. A lot of the country is without stability, is lawless. It's not a place that I could go, or even a highly seasoned overseas operative could go. It's extremely dangerous. General Mazloum secures the northeast part of Syria, which is home to the Kurds, the Yazidis, Christians, secular Muslim Arabs that are not Islamists. After the Druze were attacked, you saw by the jihadists and the Alawites, many of those minorities have been fleeing under his protection. And he's been strongly allied, the Syrian Democratic Forces, with the United States for 10 years fighting ISIS.
So our presence is about, what, 400 guys?
In Syria, I'm not sure of the exact numbers now. And
do you think it's important we stay there?
It's critical that we have a big footprint in northeast Syria. I believe the United States is planning to build a base in Damascus. And more important, we need to stay in Erbil, in Iraqi Kurdistan, where there's a land route, and we've had great relationships.
It sounds good for us strategically and for you from our perspective, but do you think the Syrian government wants us to have a presence here?
Oh, I'm sure Ahmed al-Shara would like as free a hand as possible, but he's not going to get that. His guarantors are President Trump and MBS. And it's very important that both Saudi Arabia and the United States hold him accountable for protecting minorities. The government structure has to be decentralized. Those states where the minorities live have to have a strong government that then connects with the central Damascus government.
And he, well, according to reports, was impressive when he came to the White House. And how do you think that played in Syria? Did you hear bad things, or?
I spoke to Syrian Democratic Forces and personnel who had to fight HTS when it was led by this person. So his credentials and his history is well known as a jihadist.
Yeah, it's problematic. We got to see if he had a change. Let's hope. Anyway, Dr. Ahmed, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure, Brian.
Stay safe. Karl Rove has seen it all, done it all, been in that position of power himself, former Deputy Chief of Staff, Wall Street Journal columnist, senior advisor to the President George W. Bush at one point. Karl, welcome back. Karl, I don't think that Steve Witkoff should be leading the charge in Russia. Do you?
May I first say one thing? I'm a Texan. We don't wear cologne.
Is that true?
Get that out of your mind.
Come on.
Yeah, that's true, man.
Don't you guys want to smell good and sexy?
What we do, man. So come on down here and we'll show you what we do with New Yorkers wearing cologne.
Wow.
No, I totally agree. I mean, he may be well-meaning, but it is an incredible miscarriage of justice for him to sit there and think it is his job to help the Russians negotiate the best possible deal by giving them inside scoop on how to deal with Trump. And that's not his job. His job is to represent the President of the United States, not to grease the skids for Vladimir Putin. Terrible judgment. Terrible judgment.
Why does Putin have to get on the phone and stop him from selling tomahawks to Zelensky? That would have been a game changer.
Look,
that got Putin to the table. Doesn't he know that?
Exactly. And look, Donald Trump knows one thing in the bottom of his heart totally, which is you operate from a position of strength. You're not going to get Putin to agree to a deal unless Putin is afraid of not doing a deal. And, you know, the being able to strike energy facilities and utilities and power plants and munitions factories and military installations, you know, hundreds of miles away from the border with Ukraine is a real troublesome thing for Vladimir Putin. And for President Trump to, you know, get this deal done, he's going to have to strengthen the Ukrainians so that the Russians say, you know what, it's in our interest to get a deal, not it's in our interest to wait these people out and have this whole country land up in our lap after ungodly amounts of munitions and lives have been lost.
So what I just think is this, and I'm not, I just care a lot, and I just talk to everybody possible. But I just think that if you want to get some leverage on Putin, we always misjudge Russia's strength. We have done that for 50 years. It's not a Trump problem. It's a problem we've always had. So when we put those strict sanctions on those two behemoth oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, it really mattered, and it affected India's purchases of oil and gas because they didn't want any part of the sanctions. So I got it. So if you want strategically not to go after China, that's a decision. But they are buying the most oil. But here's the other thing, Karl. If you just say, listen, Vladimir, we're getting closer and closer to a deal. I need you to honestly broker. If I feel as though you're not playing ball, they're going to get tomahawks. And the Senate sanctions are going to be on my desk, and I'll be able to sign them right away. The secondary sanctions will be more devastating than anything you've had to deal with. I hope I don't have to sign it. Do it. I mean, what do we care? We didn't have great relations before we got there.
Yeah. Look, I don't even think he needs to be that precise. He can simply say, Vladimir, you don't do a deal, you're not going to like what is going to happen to you next.
Yeah. It can't be the status quo. You can't go back to fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly, and you're not going to. I mean, it's amazing. They get more territory than they now occupy, and they get absolution for the vicious war crimes that they have committed against innocent civilians. I mean, it is just amazing to me what Witkoff has sort of laid there out on the table or accepted from the Russians. And you're right. This is not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is. Look, he didn't say to Hamas, look, we're going to give all of the vicious killers who murdered people and raped people on October 7th a pass. He didn't do that when he brought about peace in Gaza. He did so from a position of strength. He needs to do so in this situation as well.
Here's what Dave Ignatius from the Washington Post said, cut 11.
Some progress is being made. I'm told that the list of 28 items has been narrowed to 20, and of those, 90% have been basically resolved. Unfortunately, the two that remain, although I don't know the details, are described as among the hardest. So just getting to yes with Ukraine is still not done, and the sign of that is that President Zelensky is not coming to Washington to meet with President Trump. Trump wants agreement on all the points. But to your correct point, that then the hard part begins. I mean, getting agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine is one thing. Getting Russia to sign on to that is something entirely different.
And then we're waiting till Monday to send Witkoff. Excuse me, we need it today. I mean, what are we waiting till Monday for? I mean, we're in Abu Dhabi with the Secretary of Army. I'm fine with that. I'd be much better with Keith Kellogg in there. He's got all the experience, knows the area, not afraid of Russia. But, okay, he wants to back off or they want him off, whatever it takes. All right, that's fine. But I wouldn't wait till Monday. Why are you waiting until Monday? Meanwhile, they're sending drones into apartment buildings.
Yeah. Well, and remember, there is no Thanksgiving holiday in the UAE, no Thanksgiving holiday in Russia, no Thanksgiving holiday in Ukraine. Yes, you may discombobulate the American negotiators not being able to be with their families on Thanksgiving, but stay at the problem. And you're absolutely right. Putin is playing Trump for a sucker. And at some point, Trump is going to say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of you underestimating me. And my hope is that is sooner rather than later. Because
the thing is, Karl, he's not out on a limb. He's got the backing of most in his party and all the Democrats, just about. Yeah, so he doesn't have to buck his own party. I know there's people on the right. Oh, I can't understand. They think Russia really is abused by the expansion of NATO. They think that Russia and Ukraine are equally to blame. I don't get that mindset ever.
I don't either. I mean, the idea that Ukraine is responsible for a surprise invasion by Russia is just idiotic. And the idea that, think about this, the people who really have reason to complain are the Ukrainians, because every single deal that they have signed with the Russians going back to 1989 has been violated by the Russians. The Russians, remember, guarantee their sovereignty. A lot of the old Soviet Empire nuclear weapons were located in Ukraine. Give up those nuclear weapons, surrender them to the control of the United States and Russia, and we, Russia and the United States together, will guarantee your sovereignty. That was the initial promise. And what happened to that? I mean, Vladimir Putin is, granted, at that point, sort of a bureaucrat inside the KGB, But nonetheless, that is what the nation of Russia pledged to Ukraine, and every subsequent agreement that they made has been broken just as that one was.
Right. So there's got to be security guarantees, and we have the impossible. Yes. Europeans have volunteered their troops. France and the UK has said we're going to put troops there, and the Russians said that's never going to fly. So let's go talk about it. If they want to talk about it, okay, that's called a negotiation. But it's got to be security guarantees, not a piece of paper. I do want to get your take on the midterms. I want you to hear what Kevin McCarthy said about MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, bowing out and just retiring January 5th.
She's leaving Congress, but I don't think that's the end that you'll see about her. And I think. Look, I've always believed that any time you have an elected official that's known by 3 initials, they're effective on what they do. And I found Marjorie to be very effective, but she's almost like a canary in a coal mine. And this is something inside Congress they better wake up, because they're going to get a lot of people retiring, and they got to focus. I think keeping members out of Congress, you only get 2 years to be in the majority. And if the Democrats get you not to work every day for 2 months, that's losing 2 months of the majority.
And that's what happened with the shutdown. So what do you think about his assessment? What are you hearing?
Well, I do think he's right that I don't know if I call her a canary in the coal mine. I think she's the first, but there are others. I mean, Michael McCall, who's Mike,
I know,
lives across the lake from me here in Austin, former chairman of the Homeland Security, former head of the Intel Committee. He's not going to be a chairman again, at least in the foreseeable future. He's already had 2 significant committee chairmanships, and he's 62, and he's saying, you know what, I have another chapter in my life. I'm not running again. And I think we're likely to see more of that, and we've seen a large number already. Congressman from Tennessee bowed out in order to get involved in a business deal in South America, and we have a special election next Tuesday to fill his spot. So, I do think that there's a sense in Congress of, why am I here? This is not constructive. I don't feel like I'm making a difference. I came here to serve my state and my country and my district, and I don't feel like I'm that we're doing things that are useful to them. And so why am I spending my time here? And it's always easier to reelect a responsible incumbent than it is to try and fill an open seat.
This 7th district in Tennessee, this Democrat is so out there. I mean, she's on tape ripping, on tape saying Nashville's terrible, country music's awful. She's basically does not walk back when asked if defund the police is where you stand. She goes, "I'm here to talk about the issues." You idiot, that is an issue. And then and you see her attitude when it comes. She goes, "Men and women can both get pregnant." So this is a dream candidate. And the 7th district, Trump won by 22, and I think Green won by 20. So why are the Democrats seeing vulnerability and pouring over $1 million into this?
Well, first of all, because they just came through an election in Virginia and New Jersey where they did better than expected, and they're hoping. I mean, imagine if they were able somehow to pull this off. What a blow it would be for Republican enthusiasm. Look, I think it is going to be closer than 20 or 22 points, but she is such a lunatic, and it says something about the Democrats and their ultimate weakness that they cannot figure out that you cannot have a lunatic who says that black men are being arrested when white women call the police, and that police are a form of institutional racism. You cannot have somebody that is that out, and men and women both can be, can give birth. I mean, it's like, what are you thinking? And she's a nut. And this is the candidate that they put up. Originally she sent out a text saying, if you are a white politician being opposed in a Democratic primary by a black opponent, maybe you ought to think about this moment in history. In other words, white people get out of the primary so that black people can win. Well, guess what? She beat a black state representative to get the Democratic nomination. Didn't even listen to her own advice. But that's how out of touch she is. And so, they're going to spend a bunch of money. I think it's going to come up short. It may be closer than 20 or 22 points simply because Democrats are energized and Republicans are complacent. But at the end of the day, there is a fundamental problem that the Democrats have that will become more and more evident in the 2026 midterm elections if they nominate more lunatics like that woman.
I have 2 topics to get through in 2 minutes, all right? First, I'm going to talk about the divide on the left. How big a deal is the socialist movement now that Mondami won? And now is the DSA is part of his transition team and part of his cabinet. And the fact is he does have correct charisma and is very comfortable on who he is. How big of a problem is the socialist within the Democratic Party?
Well, it's going to be big because, look, they're not going to be able to win in 2026 or 2028 by nominating DSA candidates, particularly in 2028. The notion that they're going to be able to nominate Mamdani. Remember, 66% of the registered voters in the city of New York are registered Democrats, and 22% are registered independents. Only 16% are Republicans, conservatives, or a bunch of little minor parties. This guy was the nominee of the Democratic Party and got 50.4%. There's already a problem inside the Democratic Party with a lot of Democrats saying, I'm not a socialist. And all those lunatic views that are anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-police, anti-wealth, anti-creation, anti-free markets, I don't believe in that stuff. And so it's going to be a problem for the Democrats. He's bright, he's young, he's smart, but he is also very left-wing, and the country is not. Maybe New York is, but not the country.
What about the extreme right, the extreme right on the right, and how much of a problem it could be for Republicans in the midterms?
It could be a big problem, and the Republicans had better stand up against the anti-Semitics and the anti-Israel crowd and the bigots and Holocaust deniers and neo-Nazis. Tucker Carlson inviting a neo-Nazi, an avowed neo-Nazi who applauds Hitler and Joseph Stalin, is a problem for Republicans, just like we had a problem in the 1950s and 60s.
Gotcha. Karl Rove, thank you. Fox and Friends Weekend co-host. You're filling in for John Roberts today in a few hours.
That's right.
By the way, have you heard the news that I'm on the 5? Okay, I'll keep going. I'm on the 5. So are some other people on the 5, including none other than Jimmy Fallon, which is a huge mistake, and Guy Benson. What do the three of us have in common?
You all three have radio shows.
Yes.
But unlike
on what network?
Fox News Radio.
Thank you.
But unlike Fela and Guy Benson, I will say that for the first time ever in the ratings of radio, and I started in the 90s, did it throughout the early 2000s, your show has landed at the top of the global list. So people not only within the continental United States, Hawaii, and Guam and Puerto Rico, but worldwide, you have the #1 radio show. So I'm here to just congratulate you.
And this is even in the Czech Republic. They do real-time translation.
They do. They like it very much. They particularly like, when you go on tangents, the Kilmeade tangents, they often...
They're pro-tangent.
Learn...
I do my own weave.
They learn things that they can then take to their Czech water coolers and spark debate.
So 1 week ago today, we had the mayor-elect go meet in the White House. There were no fireworks. In fact, they were friendly. Here is Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect, still being questioned on why was that meeting friendly. Cut 37.
Did you expect him to like you as much as he did?
I was trying to prepare for a lot of different situations. I mean, honestly felt like the most productive meeting we could have had.
Yeah.
I mean, a meeting where we talked about ULERP, we talked about, groceries, Con Ed, rent, childcare. That feels like the best meeting you could have.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's just a widespread reaction. Some people were just befuddled. People in the Jewish community were some of them were angry. Our own Sid Rosenberg, fantastic anchor at WABC, was like, as much as he loves Trump, he's very upset by it. What do you think about the ripple effects? To me, it makes total sense because Trump lays the groundwork. There were times when he had positive meetings with Cuomo. But when Cuomo starts going off and blaming him and not being receptive to different things he was doing during the pandemic, he would rip another one. And I think when he starts coming out against ICE and things to that nature, I think it'll be problematic again.
Yeah, they're gonna clash. But this is, in your sports guy, you appreciate this. This is a classic case of game loves game. Game respects game. Mamdani is a charismatic young politician that was able to talk about issues of affordability and obviously have a massive victory. And I think President Trump gave real respect to start things off. They're going to clash on other things. By the way, you're talking about the reactions to Mamdani's win. I love, and we played this on Fox and Friends this morning, Michelle Wu in Boston said she doesn't want to, quote, bromance with the federal regime. What are you doing? Stay in your lane. What are we going to have, Boston Boston's mayor and New York's mayor go head to head on this? It makes no sense at all. And I think Democrats were actually, like Michelle Wu, showing their cards that they're actually jealous that Mamdani was able to go in there as a young, unskilled, he hasn't done a whole lot in his life, particularly in politics, was able to go there and get a win for himself. It was President Trump showing respect, trying to get off on the right foot, because at the heart of it, he cares about New York. He's putting New York first.
Right.
But Mamdani did do a good job of carrying that out, playing that Oval Office meeting the right way. And even when he was asked by our own Jackie Heinrich directly, like, hey, so do you still think Trump's a fascist, the guy sitting next to you? And Trump tried to give him a way out. He stayed focused and was calm and poised on just saying, look, this is about doing what's right for New York.
Well, look, states are responsible for their utility costs, and the utility costs are high. And I would say part of that is Governor Cuomo said, let's get rid of this nuclear power plant. Crazy, for no reason. And then he said, number two, we're not going to even have a pipeline go through our state. They had to go around it. So, and there's not going to be any fracking. They did an environmental study. Every time it said there's going to be no environmental impact, he said, we're still not going to frack. Well, what are you going to do then? Look at Pennsylvania's costs, compare, and New Jersey's, look at Pennsylvania's costs compared to New Jersey and New York. So the president talked about Con Ed get their prices down, but you can't force Con Ed to get their prices down unless it's discovered they're gouging, and they haven't. Usually utilities don't gouge. It's because where are they getting the energy from to give to you? So if energy prices go up and you're freezing the rents, let's do the economic calculus.
Right.
What happens? Those apartments stay empty because it's not going to cost anything. No repairs get done, or people walk away from their buildings.
It's going to be obviously a disaster. But, I do think I'm fascinated. One thing we don't know about Mamdani right now, Brian, is who really is advising him right now. Remember the phone call that was leaked to the press that Obama had, talked with Mamdani and wished him well. He didn't endorse him because he didn't do that in local elections, but he said he would be there for an ear. He'd help him if he needed to. I feel like we'll eventually learn that some of the people right now on that transition team, people that are advising him, are perhaps former Obama aides or people that Obama has helped bring in, so that when Mamdani has to figure out some way to actually govern on issues like Con Ed, as opposed to what he was saying on the campaign trail to get young people to go out and vote, I think we're going to see signs of that.
Going to get a lot of people retiring. We'll see what happens in New York, but we also know what happened in Chicago. Crime is up 100% from this time last weekend as this weekend. When you see Christmas tree lighting results in a shooting, when you see someone getting on a subway train or a train and gets doused with gasoline and get burned on fire, and you find out the person had 72 prior arrests. I mean, things like that happening in Chicago at the same time they're pushing back against Trump. You wonder why that issue isn't bigger in America, where one party is for crime or anti-crime and the other one is ambivalent, at the best ambivalent. Well, why does that not resonate more?
Well, you would think it would, and obviously we have the traditional dichotomy between the urban areas and the rural areas. But at the end of the day, you have, as you mentioned, 385 murders to date in Chicago, nearly 1,400 shootings. The case of the guy, Lawrence Reed, that set the woman on fire in a horrific manner, had 72 prior arrests, 8 of which were felonies. When I was on day 1, 2, and 3 of that Operation Midway Blitz riding around, I took time just to talk to some Chicagoans here and there, even off camera, and said, "Wait, what do you think about this? Are you really opposed to this? Like your mayor is, like your governor is?" And they said no. And that's why places like my hometown, Memphis, all Democratic leadership, from the mayor to city councilmen.
They found 161 kids.
Yeah, and Memphis embraced it and said, "Yeah, no, we're not going to disagree with it."
They found 161.
Yeah. And the Memphians are the same way I think a lot of the residents in Chicago feel, which is like, wait, I don't want this to be a political issue. I want it to be a safety issue.
But I'll tell you, in Charlotte, when they showed up in Charlotte, the ICE and Border Patrol, FBI, National Guard, nobody was going to work. All the Hispanics working in the fields, the farms, the hospitality, no one's going to work. Now, the question is, are they all illegals? Do they feel as though if they're here legally, they really think the administration is going after just generic Hispanics? I think the reason why that might be the perception, I'm not saying the reality because I'm not there, is because they are going up in Home Depot and just grabbing people, show me your papers. That's not the mandate, I think, that's going to help the president in the midterms. I understand the sentiment, but just going into farms, raiding farms, and going to Home Depot, That's not the worst first. We have a lot of bad people out there.
It's not, but I'll give you an example. About 30 minutes ago, I got a press release. I get all these press releases on a daily basis from ICE and from DHS, and they just deported successfully, turned over to the Salvadoran officials, an MS-13 senior gang leader they arrested in Boston. Great. He had been deported 3 prior times. At some point, came back into the country, had a criminal shop going up in Boston. So, the more I feel like the administration highlights those cases, then they understand why, everybody's got to ultimately go if you're here illegally. But in the case of ICE, they target these cases. In this case, that was
if I target you and you're the MS-13 leader, and then the person next to you isn't a criminal that we know of, but you're not here illegally, I get it. You're out. I understand it. But I think you have to watch yourself in the Hispanic community where they feel like you're targeting them, even though most of the people who come through the southern border are Hispanic. So that's not Trump's fault. That's the way the demographic breaks down. I wouldn't mind seeing some of those Chinese that came through with their pocket protectors and roller bags. Where are they? Can we grab some of them?
I was out in California for weeks on end with people literally setting up shop, coming across like a travel agency. Yeah. And they're clean. They have roller bags right there. And, I don't know. It's a good question. But I will say this, that, there does seem to be a debate within the administration over whether or not the optics, as you say, of raiding a Home Depot parking lot is in any way comparable to how the vast majority of Americans feel about removing the MS-13 guy I was talking about.
All right. So just real quick, when we talk about the socialists you were talking about before, I want you to hear Linda Sansour, this radical with CARE, who's now being targeted into money to people like Mondami and the Somalian candidate over in Minneapolis. Listen to her, cut 43.
The story is not just that it's random that Zahran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zahran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zahran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zahran PAC in New York.
So they're not denying it. CARE's got to be examined. It's got to be looked at. They've been a very dubious group, especially come under scrutiny since 9/11.
Yeah, look, CARE operates very strongly in Washington, D.C. I mean, they're an outspoken group that picks various fights every week. There's something that they're outraged, but they're also an effective lobby. And so it'll be interesting. I mean, like Omar Fateh in Minneapolis, as you mentioned, lost because people felt, well, you know what? We're not fully behind this guy. He sounds too radical. We're going to stick with Jacob Fry, who has his own problems
He's
with
a clown.
Minneapolis, but it seemed to be, by just an observer looking on the outside in, it looked like it was a lesser of two evils.
So there's CARE and CARE Action. CARE Action's out there rounding up votes. Turns out the organization's 501c4 political arm is operating across 22 states without proper legal authorization, registration, or licensing. It raises money, issues endowments, and conducts voter influence campaigns while sharing leadership and infrastructure with CARE National. It is not even legally authorized to operate in Washington, D.C., where it's incorporated, creating exposure to wire fraud, deceptive solicitation, illegal coordination between charitable and political entities. In practice, CARE Action functions as a national political operative outside the compliance system. So if you're looking for a legal mechanism, you got it. You're not allowed to do this.
Yeah, but listen, CARE is very good from a PR standpoint at the ability to pick some case that we haven't heard about, blow it up, turn it into, some racist, outrageous behavior. And I think, we haven't heard much about places like, what if ICE goes into Dearborn, Michigan, and finds illegal people, some of whom may be violent criminal illegal aliens? They will be the loudest to push back on that.
Good. Game on. All right, Griff, stick around. Who's coming on? Do you know who's coming on weekend? Fox and Friends.
It's going to be...
Do you know who's not coming on?
I don't know. Brian Kilmeade may be on. He's going to have a promo. No promo.
You will promo me.
I'll promo you.
I really hope
that's going to be very strong.
Yeah. Right.
And then, we like to invite Taylor Swift every week. I defend her quite a lot.
She's not coming.
I don't think she's coming.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get Martha Stewart. She has a new jeans ad. It's pretty cool.
Don't see her coming. She does have a new jeans ad.
Yeah.
Why?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Why would you put Martha in and not Sydney Sweeney again?
Well, yeah. I guess you want the really older demo, much older demo. Too old demo?
I'm leaving you hanging on that one.
Back in a moment.